I missed you,
likewise. Bill. Loved having Ian on.
I don't know, Jake. People said that you looked real happy.
Get out of here with that.
That's just what people say. Many people are saying it.
One message says connection has timed out. Please try again. And the other one says,
I have meeting is now streaming live.
Can you see it?
I say we're live. We're live.
Can you check it on YouTube?
Yeah, I'll check.
I think people, they said they missed me making faces about when you would make comments about things. And then I would have
cringy faces.
Yeah. It's all part of the show.
We're good, man. We're live.
All right. Well,
we'll do it live.
What's up, everybody? Fun to be back after the LA Berkshire Hathaway meeting. That's the subject today. Jake might have some. He's also prepared some veggies.
Yeah, always, right?
That's the kind of guy that he is.
Stay healthy.
You want to start with your veggies, and then we'll just roll into riffing on Burke.
Yeah, we can do that if you want. That works.
I think it makes some sense.
All right. Well, so I'm going to try to poorly explain to you guys how like an electrical transformer works. And it's a miracle, actually, if you understand some of it, like how these things work. Like it almost boggles the mind that it actually works this way. So let's get a little bit of some background just to sort of set the mood. There are two types of electrical systems. You have AC and DC, so alternating current and direct current. And in a direct current, which is the more simpler version, electrons flow along a wire from a positive to a negative charge. And in an alternating current, they also flow from positive to negative, but that positive and negative is changing back and forth. And the way that it does that is that in a generator, whether it's steam powered, a nuclear plant or natural gas fired, or you're burning dung or whatever, garbage, or a hydro plant, the turbine is spinning such that it passes this a magnet is spinning inside past these points, and they're triggering an electrical impulse within it. And the amount of times that it triggers that impulse in a given minute or given second, is hertz, right? And so we run on a 60 hertz system in the US, which means it's 60 times per second. It's triggering this impulse. Okay. So now electric transformers that we're going to be talking about, they actually only work in an alternating current system like we have. And if you take an AC generator and you connect it in a loop, you end up with the electrons are basically like flowing back and forth on the, that first hit is going one direction, and then it's pushing it back the other direction. So it's alternating back and forth. And when you wrap as a current flows through a cable, outside of it, it emits a magnetic field, right? So, and if you take that cable and you coil it up a bunch, you create a bigger and bigger magnetic field from that coil. So if you were to take that coil and you set it next to another coil, even though they're not touching at all physically, and you ran alternating current through one of the cables, that magnetic field would basically like jump and induce electrons to move on that other cable that's coiled up. So they're not touching at all. And this is kind of a magical thing to me. Like they're not touching, but yet they have an influence on it through what's called electromotive force, right?
Is there any energy lost through that?
There can be, yeah. With we'll get into that a little bit. It's usually lost to heat, but and by the way, that EMF that I just said, electromotive force, is not quite the same thing as like electromagnetic radiation, which is sometimes called like EMF out of your Wi-Fi. It's a little bit different of a concept, just to clear that up. But so a lot of the magnetic field is wasted because it's not within range of this other coil. Like if you're trying to maximize the amount of transfer between these two things. So what engineers came up with this really creative solution where they take an iron core. So just imagine like a donut made out of iron, And that helps magnify the electric field to go from one side of like one coil to the other coil. And so you still end up having losses within this system, and they're called eddy currents. It's actually like these little currents of electrons swirling around inside the iron core that turn into heat. But it becomes much more effective at focusing that force from one side to the other of the coil. So the way that a transformer works is that system, except the number of coils on one side versus the other will change the voltage coming in and going out. So the more coils that you have wrapped up in that secondary coil will create more voltage on the way out. Likewise, if you wanted to, and that's called a step up transformer. If you wanted to bring the power voltage down, you would actually have less coils on the outgoing side.
Just remind us what's voltage?
Voltage is like the potential, basically. Like one analogy might be like the pressure inside of a pipe, like with water. So it's like, how much can it do? Well, so in your, like, let's zoom out now and think about the bigger power grid. Like, how does it work? If you have typically a generator, and these are like massive plants, right? Like they're huge things. They're typically run at like 11,000 volts, like 11 kV will be the local voltage that's used. Now, how come, like, obviously we can't use, or we don't use 11,000 volts in our house, right? Like we're down to 120 volts. How do we get there? Well, we actually, paradoxically, we actually step up the voltage first before it comes to our house. And the reason for that is that if you move power over a long distance, the longer the wire, the more losses that you have, for the lower the voltage. So if the higher the voltage, actually the less current that's required, and current is where the losses come from. Current is what creates the heat that leads to losses. So that's why we step up from the plant that's 500 miles away is at 11,000 volts. We'll step it up to 500,000 volts to move it a really long distance before finally locally moving it back down to, maybe like a 4,000 volts at a maybe a bigger substation in your neighborhood, all the way down till like the transformer that's outside your house will be back, we'll keep stepping it down until you get down to 120 volts that you plug your laptop into, right? So one of the other interesting things that's kind of cool about the way that a transformer works is that it's actually, because you want it to be insulated as much as you can, so that electrons aren't like jumping around as much, right? And you want the electrons to stay where you want them, but you want the magnetic field to go where you want that to go. And how we do that actually is like baby oil, like mineral oil is what is in most transformers. And it's a really good, insulation. It's non-conductive. The other, if you have a lot of money to spend, especially actually for like underground electrical things, they have this stuff called sulfur hexafluoride, SF6. It's this gas that's incredibly inert, and it does a tremendous job of insulating electrical systems. Anyway.
Welcome to Electrical Engineering After Hours, everybody.
Yeah,
just
no
in case
doubt.
you just tuned in.
Okay, so let's take some of these concepts that we've kind of painted in broad strokes and draw maybe some interesting conclusions. Let's go back to, we've talked before about how Munger views the market as sometimes it trades based on the use value of the cash flows of a business, the fundamentals of the business. And sometimes it trades like a Rembrandt, right? And depending on what the market is, you can have a use flow of the cash type of market, and you can have a Rembrandt market. Well, I would convert that also into, like, Damodaran's talked about this as like narrative versus numbers, right? It's the same idea. Like sometimes it's driven by numbers, sometimes it's driven by narrative. Well, I think you could think about like the current flowing through, like the generator way out there is like the company. And, the voltage that they're creating based on either the numbers that they're creating or maybe the narrative that they're spinning, right? And so they're creating a certain voltage. And now that voltage can be stepped up or stepped down depending upon where does it go, right? Like, so the media, for instance, likes to blow things like bigger out of proportion, right? So they will step it up. They'll step up the voltage. And then, where are you in that system as far as like how far away are you from the generator? And are the windings inside of you, the coils, are they such that you're more of a step up transformer or a step down transformer? Do you take things up a level and like over extrapolate maybe and get too excited? Or do you step things down? And are you driven then by the narrative or more by the numbers? And so you can start to see that you have these like different narratives or numbers will induce flows within you as well as sort of being the secondary coil, if you will, in this system. So I don't know. What do you guys think about that one? Is this like way too far off base and insane, or is it? Did I land one?
Well, I like the analogy. I think it's an interesting analogy. I think you're drawing a long bow, and I need to think about it a little bit more.
Yeah,
I like it. I don't know. I'm with Toby. I might need to like put a little more like real thought. It's tough to follow the. It's a very complicated analogy, right? So
yeah, it's all clear up here, but sometimes like that the process from brain to mouth doesn't always fully form it.
No, man, I dig. Like I think I don't know. I guess part of what you're saying today is an interesting day to have the conversation with some of these more Rembrandt-y stocks selling off, right? I don't know. You see how people react when they get punched in the mouth a little bit. Do they kind of like focus on the long term? Is narrative driving decision making? Like I could see that. Like I like that idea, whether or not you're able to sort of cool down everything or whether or not you heat up, and I like that.
Where do you want to be? Where do you think you want to be, JT? Do you want to be stepping things up when it comes through, or do you want to be sort of stepping it down?
Well, I think it depends a lot on how far are you away from the prime mover, the business or whatever it is the asset that you're evaluating. I think the closer you are to it, the less that you probably need to change the voltage to adjust for other people's change in voltage. So if, for instance, if you're only reading news headlines about a business, and that's how you're driving your investment decisions, well, I'm guessing you probably want to be more of a step down transformer, right? Because they want sensational headlines.
They're trying to cut through, so they need to step it up. Yeah.
I would also say that the quality of the generator makes a big difference. So if your particular generator tends to run hot, then maybe you want to step down a little bit to reality. I don't want to name any names, but some management teams are a little bit more promotional. and promissory than others, and maybe don't always deliver on those. And then maybe there's other ones that are kind of more sandbaggy of actual like what they say versus how much they deliver, and maybe you want to be a little bit more of a step up transformer there.
Yeah. Okay. Now I get it. Yeah, I like that. So it's about sort of assessing the intensity of the information that you're getting and its relationship to the intensity of the underlying message, or the intensity of the narrative over the intensity of the underlying message.
Yeah. And I think the other thing to recognize is that you probably have a natural number of coils in you as that secondary in the transformer, and recognize like, I probably lean too pessimistic, or I'm a little bit too much of a step down. And they actually have these, there's this cool thing they invented called a load tap changer. And what it does is like, you can actually change the number of coils easily mechanically inside a transformer, depending on, do you need to boost the voltage or not? And so maybe you should be cognizant of doing your own kind of load tap changer within your own transformer. Yeah.
So if anybody needs some consulting on electrical engineering, Jake is available.
Incorrect.
No, he's not. Well,
will you offer to be other people's load tap changer? we tap.
That is effectively what we're trying to
change
do.
It.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I mean, that is kind of our job, right? On this show sometimes is to get the voltage maybe to the right level, either too positively or negatively, depending on what's swirling around in the world.
Well, I like that. Should we have you extracted all of the current from that analogy?
And then some.
Well done.
And then some.
That's a pro's pro right there.
Well, let's should we move on to the dessert portion of the of the podcast. Did anybody catch the Berkshire Hathaway meeting on the weekend?
Yeah, sorry if I'm getting louder to people listening. I had to adjust my gain. Yeah, I did. It was good. But then I got to be honest, I listened to it a second time getting ready for the show, and Warren confused me a lot.
How? Which part?
Let's dig into that.
I don't know, man. Like, I mean, not like expressing a view on taxes. I thought that was kind of like a dancey answer. I mean, he didn't go into like he said something about like he's bought businesses recently that he doesn't have like real insight into, like unique insight into.
Is that Verizon? What's he talking about?
That's what I think it was. He could have been talking about the Japanese trading companies. I'm not really sure like which one he was talking about, but I don't know. I just like there were just some things that had me scratching my head a little bit.
I did enjoy having. I had to catch a replay because my boys had a bunch of baseball on Saturday, so I didn't get to watch it live. So I watched it on Sunday morning, and I set it to 1.5 times speed, and like it was basically like putting them back into 1998 level. Like it was
interesting.
It's quite good actually. Like it really made a big difference.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess like I like that Charlie brought the heat. But I don't know how I feel about like I'm not sure I got real insight into how the business is running or like much comfort that
I think you said that
Warren have like systematized insurance. I don't know.
I think he said they were running pretty hot, didn't he? Like I got that impression.
What do you mean?
Just that the businesses were running pretty hot.
Yeah.
In that context of he was talking about inflation. And he said that Berkshire was doing very well. Most of the economy was doing
85% of the economy is running in super high gear.
Yeah.
And international air travel is
not one of them.
So that was one. Like, I don't know if you're worried about, I guess I can argue this both ways because what we went through was such a unique instance. But like, if you're worried about the headline risk of owning a business that needs to get a bailout, then like, why are you over 10% in Bank of America and why were you over 10% in Delta? Like, and then he's like, I don't make macro calls, but I feel like that was kind of a macro call. I don't know. There's just a lot of things that I sort of am like, huh?
It's also, he could have just been being polite about the prospects for airlines he knows that everybody's looking at him as a business analyst and he's sort of told everybody what he's doing by selling out of them. He doesn't really need to go and dance on their grave afterwards. He's just he's sold out. Buffett's given his view on airlines. Now ask him a question about airlines and he's going to be kind of polite and, not trying to hurt anybody's feelings rather than like coming in with a tomahawk dunk from the top of the key, just to really rub it in.
But I guess the thing is like, I think that would have made sense last May, but this May, I think you can kind of talk about what you were thinking. Like, I don't know why his view is any more right than everybody else's on that. I do agree with him.
He's a 92-year-old man who's been investing and beating the market for the last 60-something years. There's that.
I mean, I don't.
What have you done for me lately, Warren?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, sort of. Not like fully, but like, I don't know. I'd be interested to hear how he thought through the probabilities. I think he let slip, and maybe it's because it's what I wanted to hear, that he thinks that business travel could really be impaired going forward.
Yeah, he did say that.
I think. So maybe that's why.
As a result of Zoom, did you interpret that? Like Zoom,
well, I don't know about
like
Zoom,
things?
but I think in general, the willingness of businesses to engage remotely and to have installations remotely, yeah, I think that's going to be a massive shift. I mean, I don't think anybody that is following anything that's going on thinks that humans will not leisure travel. I think the entire equation rests on business travel.
Does business travel subsidize leisure travel a little bit, do you think?
Oh, dude, in the hub, in the big three, it's massive.
So that would make leisure travel a little bit more expensive, which will necessarily mean there's less of it.
I don't know. You could just have shittier economics for the airlines. Because leisure is not going to like Spirit doesn't care if business travel is impaired. You get like a couple small business owners on Spirit, but that's almost all leisure.
If you
and they're
take
going to hold down pricing.
If you take a very price insensitive buyer out of the demand curve, that's probably going to hurt your producer surplus.
Yeah, which there wasn't much anyway.
It wasn't a whole lot to be found anyway.
I think he's a little bit gun-shy with airlines too, for the number of times that he's lost money in it and the number of times that he's spoken about it publicly as being a huge mistake. And then sort of, you got to give him credit for having the mental flexibility to actually go and buy a basket of them. But he must have been like, you know what, if he doesn't believe it deep in his bones. So the first sign of trouble is like, grab the parachute, hit the ejector seat, let's get out.
You guys got me one more time already.
Well, to be
this is
fair,
the last time, I swear.
I do think this is outside of the realm of, what you underwrite. So I understand that. I guess I guess I just don't fully understand the idea of like, well, if we had owned them, they might not have gotten bailed out. Like, I don't know.
That might have been him being polite. Or maybe he was just worried about the optics because he was sensitive to the criticism from 2007, 8, 9 when the banks got the bailouts, and he seemed to be a beneficiary of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like that, like to me as a shareholder, I don't know that I really like a world where he's nervous about the optics of what he buys. Like this is a hard enough game anyway, and then he's playing it with all of the cash that he's playing it with.
It's a marginal business, though. I mean, I'm saying that's the excuse that he's given. The real excuse is that he's not totally sold on the airlines, and so first opportunity that he gets, he's out.
Yeah, so then why not buy something that like maybe you're a little more sold on but has less yield?
I mean, this same thing kind of happened a little bit to them in the 70s with inflation, where litigation and the amount that insurance has had to cover increased quite a bit. Like, and they didn't underwrite enough for that, right? So you had the juries basically like giving huge awards, and these insurance companies that did not have that as part of their risk profile at that time. So they underpriced it. And I think that same kind of dynamic might be explained for him. Boy, if there's deep pockets on the other side of this they're not like there's bigger risk than for that company.
It's that rise in punitive damages.
Yeah. Right. So they're going to punish him as a big shareholder rather than if it's a bunch of small guys that own it. Like they're not going to come looking to you and I to bail out that in that way.
I guess, but it's like there's still 90% of the shares outstanding that are owned by pension funds and stuff. It's not like it's a wholly owned subsidiary.
What did you think about? So the thing that stood out for me, the thing that I enjoyed the most was because I'm in this sort of project where I'm thinking about, how can you identify stuff that's going to work over very long periods of time? And so he put up that list of companies. He started with the 31 March 2021 list of the biggest companies in the world, pointed out that 5 of the top 6 were American. Apple was number 1, Saudi Aramco was number 2, and then it was Google, Microsoft, and a couple of others in there. And then he said, how many of these companies in 30 years' time will be still here? And then he went back to 1989 and he said, here's a list of the top 30, and it was overrepresented by Japan because Japan was at the very peak of its stock market bubble at the time. And none of the companies from that list showed up 30 years later, which I thought was kind of interesting. I haven't looked over a 30-year period in my back test. I've been looking back about 20 years. And at 20 years, it's almost impossible to identify it. I think I think out of about 40 companies that get pulled up, about 4 or 5 survive through to the present day, which is kind of extraordinary because these are companies that, you know, they've all got returns on equity over 20% averaged over the last 5 years. They got margins that are greater than 40% averaged over the last 5 years. Like, these are definitionally good companies. I thought it was a very interesting comment, and it's something that it keeps on hitting me that this is you have to be very careful, like the longevity. Even looking at that, I think he said that of the top 20 in 2021, he thought that a few of those might survive on. But he didn't think it was going to be zero, but he was also like, that it's hard, that not many are going to make it. I think he was hoping that Berkshire might be one.
I was told never sell.
It's potentially more of a philosophy than sort of an approach to.
Okay, don't take that so literal.
Yeah. But perhaps don't sell for valuation reasons. Might be the takeaway from never sell, not from what Buffett said.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, well, I think you have to think about, like, what's the total current enterprise value versus what it possibly could be. And that's how you handicap selling.
That's hard though. When you look at
nothing's easy, bro. It's fucking hard to make money in the market.
When you look back in 89, the biggest company was $104 billion, was a Japanese company. And that just seems like an insanely, even today, that seems like a very big business.
Yeah.
And then you look at today, it's a $2 trillion company. So that's 20 times bigger. So 20 times bigger is a $40 trillion company. That's hard. It's just hard to visualize in 30 years' time a $40 trillion company, but it's probably going to exist. And it's probably going to be Google or something like that. But it's, it just illustrates how difficult it is to sort of conceive of those sort of numbers, given what we're used to now.
Yeah. I think that's why never sell has won. For now.
We got to look at it full cycle. And I still don't think that March 2020 counts as the end of the cycle. I don't think you bounce like that out of it. Like, this is
how long are you going to wait?
As long as it takes. I'm a very patient man.
Yes. I will say a cycle until I see a damn cycle. And I'm the one that calls the cycle.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily disagree with you. I just think, I don't know. I think just like you can't look at that lesson and say, well, none of the companies were there before, so none of them will be there in the future. Right. Like, I just, all this stuff is very, very difficult.
The answer's not, the answer's not, I predict.
Yeah, no, it's hard.
It's impossible for any of these companies to get through. The answer is just that it's extremely difficult, and you should be just careful about how you kind of, don't go and buy, like, you might have thought a pretty safe bet would just be to go and buy the largest 20 companies in the world in 1989, and I'll just surf this one all the way to the beach. And then, it's bad news in 2021.
Yeah, well, I think that means that active managers can't fall asleep, right? You got to remain active. But, like, the other side of it is it's super hard to have thought about Facebook growing at 29% over the past 12 months.
Amazon. 50%, 47% on a $100 billion base.
Let me push back on that a little bit, though, that the narrative in 89 was just as strong and just as convincing and just as logical as all the narratives today.
That's true.
Okay, but I think what I'm saying is, like, the fundamentals are impressive right now. Like, that's not narrative. Like, we're talking about turning down the heat, turning up the heat. 29% growth on a $94 billion base.
It's insane.
Like, that's crazy. So what's that worth? I don't know. 10 times sales doesn't seem too nuts.
I did like his, he said something like March 22nd of last year, Berkshire couldn't sell a bond. March 23rd, Carnival Cruise Lines could.
Yeah, that was wild.
Like that he actually called him out by name.
What was the difference between the two?
What, the two dates?
Yeah.
The Fed.
J-Pow.
Oh, okay. All right.
So I flipped my TransDigm bonds too. Shout out to you, J-Pow. I should have just bought the equity, though.
What about their comments on inflation?
When have they been right on inflation?
Well, I don't think that
Like for 10 years, these guys, and I'm not saying just them, I'm saying like everybody. I think this is why Charlie's like, it's really fucking hard. Like rates haven't gone up. And yeah, like inflation right now is everywhere in the system. Guess what happens when you shut the entire supply chain down for an entire year and people keep spending money? You get huge shortages. And guess what? You can't just turn on again a supply chain. So like, it's not really shocking to me that there's a lot of price explosion right now. I think the
also
harder
you dump a lot of money
is,
on the other side. There's two sides to that equation. There's
well, I
there's
think
the
this
constriction in supply, but there's also you dump a whole lot of money on the other side.
Yeah, well, this is why I think people that want to see inflation everywhere are seeing it, and this is why I think people that don't want to see inflation are saying, "Well, this is just a supply chain issue." I mean, I have no idea, none.
It's so complicated. You would almost think it'd be better to let a market figure out the right answer than to have, overlords who think that they know the exact right levers to pull. Almost like it'd be almost a fatal conceit to think that you could do that.
I don't know. I guess, I don't know. I don't know how you undo it. As Buffett said a long time ago, it's easier to buy things than to sell them. So once you implement a strategy or a policy like this, I don't know how you get out of it, but I definitely think, he said bailing out the airlines was the right policy decision. I think he and I align from a policy standpoint. I don't think just like hands off was the right approach. So how do you unwind it? Who knows? I just know buy tech stocks, right? That's the answer.
I did like Buffett channeling his inner Henry Hazlitt and saying in economics, you could never do just one thing. So you always have to ask, and then what?
Yeah. I guess I just think that people are too like predisposed to think, and then what is negative? And I'm not sure that that's true.
That's fair. I think Munger was kind of balanced on that he was saying like the people who think that MMT is right are insane, but also that it's worked probably way better than most people would have ever imagined, and has had less consequences than we would have imagined. So
that's my view.
Maybe it can go on a lot longer.
Yeah, maybe.
I think it's insane, but it clearly, I can't point to how it's not working.
That is a conundrum.
Maybe it is the answer. I don't know. I don't think so, but maybe.
I mean, I think that the answer, if you believe in MMT, is to like own Costco, because more people will be spending more money at Costco. Like just like own the businesses that people will be spending money at is always the answer that I just come back to. Even Bitcoin. Say Bitcoin takes over the world. People are going to have to pay for Disney experiences in Bitcoin. You will end up owning the Bitcoin.
Shark teeth, doesn't matter.
I don't care what the transactional method is. I just want to own shit that people have to pay for. I know that that's like not a fun thing to say because it's not great for clickbait, but I don't know. I have thought about turning my own podcast into one big macro Bitcoin show because I know that the ratings would be fantastic. On the other hand, I'm not all that interested in it.
You get a lot of attention when you do Bitcoin stuff.
Oh yeah, people love it.
Maybe I gotta get on that. Gotta get on that train.
Well, in macro too, man. Look at the entity that SPAC'd Whitney Tilson's newsletter. They have a bunch of macro newsletters that they go with it. It dwarfs Whitney's stuff, and Whitney makes pretty good money on his stuff. It's all public. Check it out.
Why is macro so much more alluring than micro?
Because it's disprovable, and you can always throw some world is ending thesis in the middle of it.
Micro is disprovable, or macro is disprovable?
Macro
is disprovable.
I think a lot of these theses, like there's so many, like it's so complex.
Disprovable,
and then you can usually end with the Fed is
unprovable.
trying to screw you.
Unprovable.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Yes. You can't prove that somebody is wrong.
Yeah.
Or even right.
Yeah, I think macro is more politics, really, just an expression of your politics than it is really a sort of a scientific approach to anything.
Yeah.
And the fact that, I find micro is pretty intuitive, and, you can understand it when you learn it whenever high school or college or uni, wherever you get it. And then macro comes in and you're just like, what is going on here? Try and read some Keynes or some, I mean, I find the Austrians pretty easy to read, but Keynes is sort of impenetrable to me. He writes well though.
I don't fully understand.
General theory is fun.
I don't understand why Charlie still has this big beef with Bitcoin as opposed to just being like agnostic on it.
He's very anti, isn't he? Because I think Charlie's got that, he likes Lee Kuan Yew. He likes Singapore. He kind of likes authoritarian
he likes China.
Dictators and China.
Like, so, I mean, I don't know. You're going to come at people that believe in a decentralized system. Like,
that would conflict with that, right? That would.
I know, but I have a problem with some of his views on authoritarianism.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand saying like, it's not for me. It's not an asset I want to invest in. I don't own any, like, that's fine. But like, I'm very dispassionate. After the Bitcoin podcast, somebody was like, you got to have a Bitcoin naysayer on. I was like, I'm not the fucking arbiter of Bitcoin truth. You go get your own naysayer. I don't want to have this conversation. I wanted to talk to Preston. That's it.
You don't want to, I'm probably a naysayer, but you don't want to be defined in the negative to something, do you? Like, what's your thing? I'm again Bitcoin. I'm anti-Bitcoin.
It's no way to go through life.
Yeah, well, I guess it would be like a gold bug, right? I guess Peter Schiff is anti-Bitcoin. I don't know. Like, I don't care.
But then he's a gold bug. So, gold bugs are just as bad.
Good business, though.
It is good
Again,
business.
You can sell like the Fed is out to screw you. The world is ending. Buy gold.
Good for clicks.
Great.
Why do you think that is? Why is it so good for clicks?
Because of fear.
It's the same reason that it's religion. I mean, it's like, we can't explain this, but I need it explained to me. That's why thunder is some guy up there like throwing bolts around. It helps me feel like I have a sense of control.
Yeah.
Well, and then you start to see why the media runs with it when you start to see some of the numbers behind this stuff. And you're like, oh, okay. So if I ran an advertising-based business and I saw the numbers, again, pull up the SPAC that SPAC'd Whitney Tilson stuff. Like, you start to look at it and you're like, oh, this makes 100% sense why the news is constantly macro and crypto and gold. Like, I get it. That doesn't mean it's true. It just means a bunch of people that are paid on advertising are running stuff that people can't help but turn away from.
You can be out here talking about micro cap. No one cares. Mention Bitcoin.
Unit economics, transformers. Nobody gives a shit.
No, that's the truth though, right? So that's important to understand. If you're like consuming financial entertainment, I think that that's an important dynamic to see the world through.
It is funny that he's so anti. I mean, he's to call it disgusting is that's about as far as it gets, isn't it?
Yeah, like I have much more disgust for some of the promotional stuff that I see going on than Bitcoin. Like I guess you could argue, well, Bitcoin's just one big promotion, but like, I don't know. I'm glad I talked to Preston. I hope that guy, is either right or gets out in time or whatever. I think he did good work. I think he had a thesis. I think he made money. If people want to hate on me for it, then I say go look in the mirror. But, like, I don't have a hatred towards it. I don't care. Like, I don't know why people have to care about it.
Well, and if your thesis, which I think maybe this is not fair, but was that the more that people use this, the more acceptance that it gets, the more powerful it gets. Like, that is, if you're anticipating that, like, that is that's the magnetic force radiating from that wire, like, increasing, and therefore, moving the current for you, if that's how you think about the world. And like, I've given up on wanting people who have a different frequency than me, wanting them to fail. Like, I don't think that's a good way to go through life. Like, I hope they succeed, and I want to succeed in the way that makes sense to me, and it feels like I can do well without taking stupid risks. But if that's how they are wired, and that's like what the current that resonates with them, then like, why should I have opinions about that? Like, I'm actually trying to go the other direction and be happy for them, like genuinely happy that it's working for them.
If Bitcoin makes it to this point that it's just accepted everywhere, and it's a totally banal part of the landscape, hasn't it succeeded at that point? Like, doesn't it then
Except for trashing the environment with all the electricity that it takes.
Kathy Wood says that it's all renewables that it's consuming.
All good then.
Case closed.
There's no environmental damage to creating a wind turbine and solar panel or anything.
Well, I don't know about that sort of stuff. I can't comment. I'm not going to comment. That's what I'm saying.
I think the only thing that I am sure of is that I haven't done enough work to have an opinion. And I don't think Charlie really has either. I do understand why he would not like the idea of just like imagining a currency and marketing it and getting a bunch of billions of dollars off that. But like, I also don't know that if you create people's perception of a store of value and gain value out of that, I would argue that's a pretty good economics thing to solve. It shocks me that the Winklevi were able to do this.
Good for them.
You know, I mean, that's like pretty damn impressive. And I think it's a hell of a marketing, you know, to come from where it came from to where it is today. Like that's an incredible feat in marketing.
Is it marketing or is it just the nature of the thing? I mean, why get upset about Bitcoin and not get upset about frequent flyer miles?
This pen will never be recreated, right? Is like something I could tell you. This is the only pen of its kind. Unless people believe in that notion, this pen has no value.
But it's built into the protocol, right? I mean, I believe
it's
that
a
part
whole bunch
of it.
of fundamentally, it's a bunch of nothing.
But you know. So a frequent flyer miles.
Put that on a t-shirt.
I understand. No, but Bitcoin. I understand.
So are US dollars.
Well, I think that's my point is like people now believe in the value of it. And because someone created something that people believe in the value, and I don't have a huge problem with that person gaining a lot of wealth. That seems like a form of capitalism. I just think that it doesn't have underlying cash flow, and Charlie finds that like fundamentally offensive. But to me, that's just like a currency. Like I don't think
he's thinking about it as an investment product. I think he's thinking about it. I think he's got that chain letter scam view of it. You know, I've seen that it's a common scam to have these, you know, multi-level marketing type. You know, not the ones that are listed. I've seen lots of these types of things where guys are like, you know, I've got this credit card, and you get some benefit to like signing up your downstream on the credit card. Like it's not, I think that's the way he kind of views it. And I don't think it is that. I think it's something else. But I don't think that, I think it's a perfectly legitimate currency. I just don't think that, I don't speculate in other currencies. I don't know why I'd speculate in that one.
Yeah, I guess I don't understand why he's so nuanced about authoritarianism and not about Bitcoin. That's
I don't know if he's nuanced. I think he's for it.
Yeah, so that's like that to me is like really tough to stomach.
I think part of it is
like bothered me for a while.
Charlie thinks that there are, there are people out there who are smart and, who have these whatever character type, they have super intelligent and character, and they should be in charge of everything. And so when he finds a Lee Kuan Yew and look what he's done with Singapore, he says there's no reason why we can't have more of that.
I think that's the right observation. I think it's that if you've been studying human folly your entire life, what are the chances that you come down on the side of, well, we just have to give people freedom and they're smart enough to figure it out for themselves and do the right thing?
Oh, I think quite high. Because the alternative is we should centralize power. And what are the chances that people are going to do good for people when they have centralized power?
That's where I get to.
Well, I'm not saying that I was coming down on either one of those. I'm saying like, if you're Charlie and that's how you've like viewed the world, like looking for folly, you might think that the average person maybe needs a little paternalistic nudge.
Yeah, but I would be really worried about what the power would do to the people that have it.
We're going to come up in the question time.
Wait, one thing
historical
real quick.
Incidents of that happening.
One thing that I really liked that they said was when they were talking about the proposal of BHE for Texas.
Yeah.
And Buffett was like, yo, if we can't do this, like if we miss our timeline, we'll give $4 billion. And like, we're down to lose on this bid, but like whoever gets it should have skin in the game.
And we can actually deliver.
Yeah.
When we say we will.
Yeah, that's dope. That's like how business should be done. And I admire that, despite the fact that Robinhood wants to say that they were lambasted by truth tellers. What a joke Robinhood is.
Ian Castle had a question.
Hey, Ian.
Invite him on.
So
yeah, come on the pod, man. Let's do a 4-way.
Ian's question was, should you get paid for holding Berkshire Hathaway as an investment manager? And I think that in the way that he asked the question, he felt that you should not.
Ian, why are you coming at me like that, bro?
Well, I said to Ian, I'd be happy to take the other side, and I genuinely think you can take the other side. I don't currently hold it. I should tell everybody in the interest of full disclosure. But I think that, we all think of Buffett as an investor, but Buffett, I think he's an industrialist, right? He's running a business. If I could find 10 blokes who are investor industrialists like Warren Buffett running businesses that look like Berkshire Hathaway, that would be the portfolio, and that would be everything. I'd be done. And you'd be paying me to not buy anything else.
I would also say that the timing of buying it, and when you add to it, and how much position sizing, and why do you hold, and all of those things are important. And it's not just like, oh, well, you just buy this one thing and you're done. It's a continuing evaluation of, do I like the next guys that are going to be running this, and do I have a good evaluation of them, because that's going to be a big part of the future cash flow. And that's not an obvious thing to answer necessarily. And you have to kind of have a view on that to own it today, with actuarially speaking, with these two guys. Right. So, why should you get paid to own anything? I guess
Well, do you think that, at the very beginning of the meeting, they said something like they've shifted it to Los Angeles because everybody wanted to do it with Munger. What do you think that was? What was that referring to?
He's not very mobile.
He's flying private, right?
Yeah, but you got to get up on the jet. That's kind of a pain in the ass.
You still got to get from home to wherever they filmed it, because it wasn't over Zoom. It wasn't over Zoom between those guys.
Yeah, but it's easier to hop into his roles than it is to walk up. I'm sure he's flying something nice. He's not in a Learjet. Those got big steps. I don't know, man. It's a pain. He doesn't want to move. Guy might even poop himself. Don't just let him be home. I don't mean that as a joke. I'm like watching, my grandma age. It's not pleasant. So if he doesn't want to move, I would do anything that I could possibly do to help my friend in that situation.
So They've all gone to LA to make sure that Munger's there. Because presumably Buffett looks at those actuarial tables pretty closely, and so he's got an idea about how many more annual meetings he's got in him. And so then that does raise a pertinent question, and that was, I think they addressed it a little bit by having Greg Abel and Ajit Jain on the podium with those other two guys. Were you satisfied with their answer?
Well, Munger said Greg's going to be the CEO.
But that's what I mean. Like, he's satisfied with that answer?
Yeah, it makes sense to me to have. Greg does a lot of capital allocation in the big industrial businesses, and I think that's going to be where the majority of the capital allocation needs to happen on a go-forward basis. So it makes sense to me to have the guy that has the best sense of those businesses making the capital allocation choice.
How old is he?
Greg? I don't know, late 50s?
They said he had an 8-year-old. I thought, did I mishear that?
Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he's younger.
He's going to hockey games, and he's playing hockey, or his son's playing hockey. I think he said he was 8 at the start.
Guy's got time for hockey games?
Well, maybe not.
Come on, Greg. Give up your family.
Do the right thing by shareholders.
Yeah. Do the right thing so asset managers can get paid to hold the stock. Come on.
Do nothing.
Yeah. So a bunch of people that talk about reading books all day can get paid. You give up your family. This makes sense.
I don't know. I'm very attacked on this show today.
I feel a bit like
58. Thanks, guys. 58.
I think there you go. Boom. I think that why should people get paid to hold, Constellation or TransDigm or any of these sort of like capital allocation machines? I think Berkshire's, it's very big. It's probably not going to outperform. They would say that themselves, but we'll see. I don't know how you hold it tactically. That stuff matters. So
I have a
As
better
long as
answer
you're honest
actually
with your
now.
clients, you deserve to be paid. I just don't think that you can tell your clients, like, I run a tech fund and I'm long Berkshire.
I'm in the business of building little empires. And part of my empire is outsourced to the decision maker of the guys in Omaha. And that little part of my kingdom that I own is allocated to that particular business situation. But I have an entire other portfolio full of kingdoms that are part of my empire. That's how I think about it.
Yeah, I like that. You've also got
to try to buy meme stocks.
You also got to identify it.
Yeah.
Not everybody holds it. You got to identify it in the first instance. You got to understand the opportunity. You got to understand what's special about it. So you have to understand that and understand those other conglomerate type businesses and why they're worth holding and not, there's a lot of people listening to this and there are a lot of different views here, but we don't all hold all of those things. So identifying and holding it, like, that says something about the investor.
Well, let's ask the question too, like the amount of work and understanding that Chris Bloomstrand has in Berkshire. Does he deserve to have been paid for his understanding of owning it the last 20 years?
I don't know. I don't know that I buy that. I don't think that you don't deserve to get paid because you've done deep work on something. You deserve to get paid because your work is right. Now, I happen to think that he is a very smart analyst. I'm not trying, but I don't like drawing the line at this person did a lot of work on something, therefore they deserve to be paid.
Okay, I agree. But how about being right has a better chance of happening if you've done the deep work?
Well, Preston Pish would say he's pretty wrong.
Who's wrong?
I mean, Preston,
because he didn't hold
Preston
Bitcoin.
did deep work. Preston's up like 200 times on his buy, and people tell me that he's selling snake oil, and he's wrong. So I don't know where to draw the distinction. I think, people deserve to get paid if they outperform. I think that if they underperform, they deserve to get paid if they've conveyed and can demonstrate that they're taking less risk on their client's behalf. I think that people get paid to get their clients to the finish line, and that's the most important thing.
It's fair. We got questions.
Because a lot of clients can't get to the finish line without the manager, right? If Chris, he's a big boy. If he's right, he's going to get paid and he's going to outperform by a ton, right? And people will figure that out in 10 years. The thing that sucks in the meantime is, watching these meme stocks explode. Although now they're actually exploding to the downside.
This is literal exploding on the launch pad.
Yeah. Meanwhile, I'm taking on water on my beloved Twitter. That's a shame. After I mocked Buffett for not buying tech, and then I go out and buy it. That's what the gods will do. I see you, gods.
You become a Bitcoin maximalist.
Have I?
And a Berkshire minimalist.
That's funny because Berkshire's my biggest holding.
Portfolio says otherwise.
Bitcoin. Yeah, but okay. Don't let facts get in the way of a good narrative.
This is what you're doing wrong, Bill. Is you're talking your book in the opposite direction.
You got the narrative. You got the narrative hedge.
Yeah, you're at cross.
Fair. That's fair. Well, all for the likes.
All right, I got a question. What Berkshire business would you sell off, assuming no tax hits?
Oof.
I think Fruit of the Loom could go. I think there's a lot of them that I wouldn't mind carving up. I'll tell you what I wouldn't sell: Oriental Trading Company. That's a fucking business. It's just not big enough.
Odd choice there. I like it.
Yeah, came from.
I mean, if it were me,
dog.
And this is how wrong and out of tune I am, but I would probably be trimming more Apple if it was me.
It's because you're a hater.
No,
let's go to the market cap. Check it out, folks.
That's the biggest company in the world, right there. I think Meb Faber would say that basically, the biggest company in the world almost always underperforms, for the obvious reason that to become the biggest company in the world, you tend to be pretty stretched.
Things had to go right.
Some things had to go right. A lot of things had to go right, and you had to get the multiple expansion too. And
it's not trading at that crazy of a multiple, man.
I don't disagree. I was just going to say this is one of the unusual periods in time where it's not Exxon at the biggest company in the world or some oil producer is the biggest company in the world. It's a company that potentially has a little bit. It's
trading
a better
at a
quality company.
4.5% free cash flow yield.
Yeah.
Like, that's not that crazy for the best business ever. I mean, now, you got some hardware risk for sure, but like it also just generated $90 billion in TTM free cash, like straight cash, homie, like Randy Moss cash, not like, oh, we got adjusted EBITDA shit.
Yeah.
That's
no,
crazy.
No doubt. It's a absolute. I mean, it's a money printer. Like it would almost make JPOW jealous.
I'm interested to watch this suit. I want to actually like read the documents. I gotta get those. Because this suit about the App Store, this is going to be interesting.
What are they saying? It's anti-competitive, or are they saying that they're taking too big a rip?
this is what's. I mean, this is the narrative, or not the narrative, but I mean, this is what developers are saying about Apple, right? It's like you think about Roblox. Roblox is a pretty incredible product. Apple's just going to get to rake like
20% off the top
in perpetuity, like
you
that.
Create the ecosystem.
Yeah, no doubt.
So into the ecosystem. That's football. That's the way the game is played.
Yeah, well,
I created the customers for you. You get to roll out on my platform, and I had to do all the hard work. I had to go and build those bloody phones. You just get to sell to them.
This is why Buff Diggy is smarter than me when he said that it was the most valuable real estate in the world, and I heard what he said and still didn't understand it.
I still think Google's a better business.
Yeah, they had nice earnings. So did Facebook. That was crazy to see those prints.
They're the most direct beneficiaries of the last 12 months, though. That could all, and Amazon as well. I mean, Amazon, nobody's going to mention Amazon. It's like 47% on a $100 billion base, but then you lock everybody in their houses for a year. Like, that's probably what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think big tech generally, it's pretty incredible.
But is it a pull forward or not?
Well,
or
here's
is
my
it
question.
a secular trend that just keeps
Should
going?
you get paid as a manager to hold FANG? FAMG.
I think a lot of managers have kept their job doing it.
Oof. Amen.
Probably. They're probably the most widely held stocks, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure they don't deserve to be more bought.
I think we're coming up on time, amigos. Any
That's
closing
the face,
words?
Jake.
Yeah, there it is.
What do I do?
I gave Jake a cringy. I gave Jake something to cringe at. But I mean,
you didn't, Bill. The world did.
Apple at a 4.5% free cash flow yield, like that's just not that rich relative to history or anything. Like these things print.
Come on, not history, but relative.
Well, you're not. I mean, yes, we are where we are in the world. So
you can't give me like T-bill at 6% is
Yes. Okay. You are correct on that.
But relative opportunity set today, then your comment stands.
I mean, Google's a 4% free cash flow yield. Like these things are not that rich.
All right, amigos. That's full time. Whistle's blown. Thanks very much, guys. We'll see you next week. Oh, hang on. I almost